Here at 9:30 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, I'm Jane Monreal. Today we are following a suspect in Friday night light rail stabbing. Oscar Solarzano expected to make an appearance at a hearing this morning. Our Jesse Pierre will be there at 10 o'clock at Mecklenburg Court. But this brings up a couple of questions now, because this is what we know about the suspect. He was deported before, and two key questions remain as he is being held without bond now. But will he remain held without bond, and what is the timeline for the next phase? Also, because this is a criminal case that will be happening here through the state system, as we understand, but his immigration status, as he was undocumented, that is being handled separately. Our Tradisha Woodard talked to local attorney Gary Mauney about what this all means, how this process works. This is the raw interview for you now here on WCNC Plus.
Could you state your first and last name and spell it for me?
Sure, it's Gary Mauney, Mauney, and I'm an attorney with Mauney PLLC.
Okay. And Mr. Mauney, my first question is, talk to me a little bit about, just tomorrow and what folks can expect at that first court hearing.
Yes. So all citizens are and non-citizens as well. All persons are entitled to due process under the United States Constitution. So what will happen tomorrow is that this gentleman will be arraigned, which basically means he'll be offered the opportunity to plea. He'll be charged, and he will also undoubtedly be assigned an attorney if he can't afford one for himself. Part of the right that you get with our due process clause of the Constitution is a right to counsel. And that right applies whether you're a citizen or a non-citizen. The Constitution says person. So if you're a person in the United States and you're arrested and you're part of the criminal justice system at that point, then you have a right to counsel in most circumstances. So he'll have counsel there. He'll be charged. Sounds like he'll be charged with some form of murder, what most people would understand to be murder, and then the judge will make a decision about bond and whether or not he would get any bail, be able to bail out even if he could, and or the judge may say that the conditions are such that he will be held without bond. So the judge has some discretion. Will be applying a set of statutory factors to make that decision. Things that are not, it's not just the judge making the call. The judge will have statutes that guide his decision making or her decision making. And so then after that, this gentleman will probably go back to prison until the next hearing or until a trial date is set.
Got you, because a lot of folks think that ICE is going to come in and just automatically just kick him out because he has been deported before. Talk to me. We talked about how there's two separate processes going on.
Yes.
Explain that to folks.
So the state system is not the immigration system. Immigration is federal, and so it's guided and overseen by like ICE and the Immigration Department of Homeland Security, that sort of thing. Federal agencies. The most crimes that we're familiar with, like robbery or murder or speeding, let's say, drunk driving, those are state law criminal offenses. And so you're typically tried in the state courts and you're prosecuted by a state prosecutor. So most immigration law is civil. And that means that, and it's federal. So it means it's not criminal, so you don't necessarily get an attorney if you're charged with violating an immigration law. So what will happen is the state court prosecutors will probably be working with federal officials that are part of the immigration departments and agencies of the federal government, and then ICE very well may be there, and then our state government will have to decide, whether or not it's going to cooperate with the federal government, and if so, what that might look like, and so on. But the criminal charge that he's being arraigned for is a state charge. and that's different from federal offenses like violations of the immigration law and that sort of thing. Again, that law is civil. So when you're charged with an immigration violation, you don't automatically get an attorney. One's not granted to you as a matter of course under the Constitution. So it's only if you're charged with a crime under our Constitution, state or federal, that you have a right to an attorney. Just for a mere violation of an immigration law, like you're here illegally, you're not entitled to an attorney when you're in a federal immigration court having to deal with that. So these are separate things, and they're going to be dealt with undoubtedly separately.
And we know that, you talk about them being two separate things. We also kind of talked about just how this happens. Obviously, this is not the first time people come back. Do you know if there's a process for someone who has been deported before? If it does get taken on a federal level, do you know if that process is faster if someone's already been deported, or is it still the same process over
Well,
again?
it could be faster, sure. If this person's immigration, let's say he challenges his immigration status. He says, no, I'm here legally. If it's already been proven once that he was not here legally, nothing else appearing, it should be a faster situation because that issue has already been adjudicated and decided. So certainly if they don't have to decide that issue again, if it has been, then it would be faster. And as well, he may not contest it. So a decision would have to be made whether or not the immigration process should proceed or whether or not the criminal process should proceed. And you could understand, for instance, the victim's family having an interest potentially in this person going to jail if he's guilty, as opposed to just merely being deported, back to his home country, wherever that may be.
And then obviously the U.S. is very limited on their ability to retrack anyone unless they're arrested again. So it's kind of a difficult process to be able to target who's undocumented, who's not, and how that.
They can figure it out. They know if they catch you and you're here without papers, you haven't applied for asylum, you haven't applied for citizenship, if you haven't done anything in order to be here legally, which you're required to affirmatively, meaning you're required to do things in order to be here legally. So either you have done that or you have not. And that's what the immigration court is here to help make a determination of. And of course, if you're asking for asylum, you're escaping some type of treatment by a government of your family in your home country, the foreign country, then that's what the courts are here for. But this fellow, from what I'm understanding, was here illegally. He had been sent out and had come back. And we'll say, you're deported, and so the United States has very little ability to do something about your behavior once you're out of the country. So certainly someone could make a decision that they've been deported, but they want to come back and could do whatever they do in order to get here, and that would be illegal, and certainly would have consequences for them ever being able to be a citizen, because if you repeatedly violate our law, then certainly it's going to be far more difficult for you to ever gain citizenship status here. So anyway, the government does not put an ankle bracelet on you and make you wear it when you leave the country so that they could track you forever and find out whether or not you've come back. So that's not the type of thing that typically happens. And so, if you want to try and come back, then these people obviously do try to come back, some of them. And if they're here and they're caught, well, they're twice violated at least, and certainly that's going to help make the decision about whether or not they're going to get to stay in the United States a relatively easy one, because they're already in violation. That's already been decided, and would certainly make it easier to send them out of the United States if they're here illegally. And we know that they're here illegally, and it's been decided before. So, and certainly we have processes at the border to try and keep people from coming into the United States without having the proper authorization to do so. But as we know, where there's often a will, there's often a way, and people figure out a way to get here, and that's a big problem. And then once they get here, If they decide that they don't want to abide by our law, then this is the situation that we find ourselves in, where someone's harmed a United States citizen and they're not even supposed to be here. And certainly that elicits a form of outrage from folks, because it's someone's been hurt. They're an American, has a right to be here by someone that has no right to be here to begin with, and can understand why people would have a problem with that.
So I think it's safe to say that tomorrow's court appearance is going to be pretty quick, but this is definitely going to be a pretty long legal process ahead.
Yes, I mean, arraignments tend not to last that long unless there's something contested about them. But sort of given what we understand about the facts here, I'm not sure what the contested facts might be in terms of whether or not there's probable cause and whether or not he was arrested properly. That's the type of thing that will be determined tomorrow, and whether or not he pleads guilty or not, what the charges are, and that sort of thing is what we'll find out tomorrow in court.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to mention or say that maybe I didn't mention?
I don't think so, other than most people are unaware, I think, or a lot of folks are unaware that the due process clause of our Constitution applies to all persons. And so it's not just United States citizens or people that are here on some type of visa. If you're here on American soil, you have rights. And so that's what we're going to see an example of tomorrow, with someone accused of a crime who's also accused of not being here legally, and they still get due process under our Constitution. We treat people with fairness, and we apply the law to everyone here, whether or not they're an American citizen or whether they're from somewhere else. And that's one of the things that makes America great, I think, that the law applies to everyone. And, it requires us to apply the law, and it can be frustrating for some that someone here illegally has a right and has rights to process. But that's, in my view, one of the things that makes our country unique in a good way.